Good evening and welcome to the CU at USC. I'm your Wednesday night host, Alexia Narcisse, and I am here today with Seleta Reynolds, who is the General Manager of the Los Angeles Department of Transportation. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm Alexia Narcisse, your Wednesday night host, and I'm here with Seleta Reynolds, who is the General Manager of the Los Angeles Department of Transportation. How has your day been today?
Well, today is the day after the election, and I have a lot of mixed feelings because last night Los Angeles voted on a lot of amazing things that really embraced our role as a 21st century city, a real urban place. But the national election really showed us that we are a very divided nation. And so, I feel hopeful for my city, but I feel, not so sure about what's going to happen in the rest of the country.
Oh, certainly. And considering you mentioned a very great point, the election was just yesterday, and I think that a lot of students and individuals don't realize what kind of impact they have and how much their vote matters. Specifically pertaining to transportation, Measure M was on the ballot, as well as Proposition 53. I'm not sure how much that necessarily affected everything that you do, but I'm sure it definitely plays a role in that.
Yeah, Measure M was a huge deal, and really there were giant transportation infrastructure measures on our ballot, on the ballot in Northern California, on the ballot in Seattle and Indianapolis. Really across the U.S., cities were turning out to vote for transportation and infrastructure. And the thing about California is that after Proposition 13 passed, you have to have a 2/3 majority to increase any kinds of sales tax. And so Measure M is a sales tax measure. So it's a really high bar. You have to convince 2/3 of the people who vote in the county that transportation investments are worth, that increase in sales tax, money coming out of their pocket. And as far as Los Angeles goes, you're talking about a $120 billion investment program that includes everything, a huge build out of the county's subway and light rail system, some highway improvements, and also things like the LA River, things like safe routes to school investments, and everything from stop signs to giant trains was in that package. And so it's not only important for how the city moves and how the county moves, but it's also a huge way to build wealth and create jobs in our own backyard. And that's really, I think, the promise of Measure M, which is pretty exciting. So it always breaks my heart when I hear people say that they don't vote, their vote doesn't matter. When it comes to things like this, and local politics in particular, every vote is very precious. I mean, because it's so hard to meet that bar. And I would say, just a plug, in March, there are some local elections on the ballot. And March is kind of a strange month to have elections. It may not be, you're thinking about what's going on in your semester, you're thinking about graduation, you're thinking about lots of things. But half of the city council of Los Angeles is up for election. And every single one of those city council offices represents 250,000 people. And it's likely that what's going on in your own backyard, on your street or in your neighborhood is a direct result of decisions that are being made by the city council. So, feel however you want to feel about what happened with the national election, but it's likely that these local leaders are really the ones who are shaping your future and your present. So, keep an eye out. March.
Wow, undoubtedly. And you even mentioned, you touched on something very important, and that's that these local leaders are so impactful in the decisions that happen on the floor, on the ground where we are. And your role is so impactful as well. I mean, you are managing the transportation essentially for an entire city of people.
Right.
And I I read a quote earlier by a friend of mine, so I shouldn't call it a quote because it's from Facebook. But they said,
it counts.
I guess it's a quote
right.
legally.
It's a media company.
We're juggling
totally.
things.
It's a published quote.
Exactly. We're going to play with this one.
Right.
But he said, Boston runs on donuts and Los Angeles runs on transportation. How
That's
true do you
awesome.
feel?
That's awesome.
How true do you feel that is towards your position and what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I think Los Angeles might also run on donuts. I'm not, every city is either a donut city or a bagel city, right? And I think LA is a donut city. But I think that, the reason, so I took this job just a couple of years ago. So I haven't been in this seat for a really long time. And before this, I was working for the San Francisco MTA in Northern California, and I've also worked for the city of Oakland. And I know that, no matter what you care about, if it's about equity, if it's about jobs, if it's about school and education, if it's about public health, if it's about sustainability, you should be in transportation, because transportation really directly influences the outcomes in every single one of these huge, huge challenges that we're trying to meet. And cities are where it's at. I mean, I think that more people are moving into cities, and for the first time, in the next few years, we may see more people in cities than in rural areas, right? And so this is really the place to try new things and to really try and leverage the role of transportation in tackling all the challenges that we have. So a little bit about LADOT. So LADOT has around 2,000 people that work there, and that includes everybody from crossing guards to traffic officers to engineers,
so that's everything.
Planners. Okay. Yeah, that's everything. Interns. I mean, it's a big department, and we sort of when I got this job, so if you end up going into transportation planning, you will spend your life struggling to explain to your parents what you do, because I would go to family reunions and my
Nana's over here like, what are you doing with the
Yes,
rose?
my Aunt Clarine would be like, is that just a fancy way of saying that you are a travel agent? I'm like, no, Aunt Clarine, I'm a transportation planner. It's different. And my mother was the same way. She would explain it again. What do you do? But when I got this job, it got really easy for her to explain it. And so she asked me, Los Angeles, wow, they've got a lot of traffic there on the freeways. And, what are you going to do about that? And I said, well, the freeways are actually Caltrans. That's a state. And so I don't really have anything to do with the freeways. And she said, oh, okay. Well, I heard Los Angeles is building a subway. That sounds so exciting. What are you going to do about that? And I said, well, Mom, that's not really me. That's Metro, which is the county. They run, most of the buses and the subway and the light rail. And she was like, oh, okay. Well, what about, I guess what's potholes? What are you going to do something about it? And I said, no, that's actually not me. That's a Bureau of Street Services. And she's like, well, I'm out. Like, what do you?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the deal? So the city of LA is one of 88 cities in the county, right? And so I just mentioned all those different agencies that touch, a piece of that whole system. So the name of the game for us is collaboration, because we really are managing the operations of 7,500 miles of city streets. We have 4,500 intersections with signals, and there's actually about 45,000 individual signals, and they're all interconnected to the giant signal brain that lives in a bat cave under downtown. So in that Mark Wahlberg movie, The Italian Job, there's a scene where they hack the whole system. You actually cannot do that, but it is true that they are all connected. We actually do have a transit system that we run. If you've ever been on the Dash or Commuter Express buses, I'm going to tell you, here's a secret, here's a pro tip. If it's a really hot day and you have 50 cents, you should go jump on the Dash, because it has righteous air conditioning. It is amazing, and there's a TV on those things. It's entertaining. The Dash is amazing. Noted.
Dash, ride Dash,
write it
2 to 3 times.
26 million rides a year, so it's a significant number of people that we carry around the city, and most of them are very low income. So it's really a lifeline service. A lot of students that take Dash, and we also manage about 37,000 parking meters. So The other thing that we do,
no.
sorry about it, is that we have about
I'm prepared. I have questions after this.
We have a bunch of traffic officers, and they do write parking tickets, but they also direct traffic, and they do really a safety focused job. So, if somebody's blocking a fire hydrant or blocking a bus zone or those kinds of things, that's their role. They're really the eyes and ears of the city. And when things happen, when we have great events like the LA Marathon or the Oscars, they're the ones that keep the city moving and direct traffic around these major events.
Okay.
So, that's just a little bit of what we do. We also regulate taxis. We oversee the bike program and active transportation, which is biking and walking.
Okay, now I have to ask, in regulating taxis, is that also Ubers?
Nope.
Okay.
The state does that.
Okay.
We're the city level, we still regulate taxis, but that's a big issue.
Tackleback, okay.
Yeah.
And pushback.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of kind of what we do. Parking, biking, busing. And just trying to get people around.
Okay, so I'm going to push out all the stupid questions first.
Do it.
Just so you can get that over with and end this interview thinking I have some sort of intelligence.
There's no such thing as stupid questions.
These ones might be.
You know that. I'll tell you.
The first one has got to be, when you pull up to a stop sign, do you guys have sensors underneath? I've always wondered. I really have. I'm curious because I roll up, I roll back, and I have this theory that if I go back 3 or 4 times, it's going to turn green.
So you're talking about a stop light?
Yes.
Yes. There are absolutely sensors under most of our intersections, and that's actually the reason why you have to push a button to get the little walking man to get the signal to change for you as a pedestrian. Because there's 2 kinds of signals. One's called fixed time, which just means it's the same every single cycle. Everybody gets the same slice of the pie. And then there's something called actuated, which is what most of our signals are in Los Angeles, because we move more people through our intersections than almost any other city in the country, because we have this amazing, sophisticated, interconnected system. And we do have sensors under most of the lanes and even under bike lanes. So even if you're on your bike, and you pull up to a signal, the signal should sense you and will turn the signal green for you.
So are you guys responsible for the little cameras that catch me when I run a red light?
We don't have those in Los Angeles.
Okay. Oh, great. Look at that's a secret. That is, wow, that's awesome.
Okay, with one
that's
exception.
Great. Okay.
One exception, which is, and it's relevant for USC, is that there is some camera enforcement around some of the trains, right? So some of the train crossings. And that's really for a safety reason. When you make an illegal turn in front of a train, it's, can have a really awful outcome for everybody. And so, but otherwise, Los Angeles did have a red light camera enforcement program until, I'm going to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and then they dismantled it.
Which is so beautiful. The Bay Area really needs to start taking notes. And before we head to break, I have one more silly question before we get to the serious stuff, which I promise you we'll get to serious stuff after the break, even though we have. I've just kind of geared it off. And I'm really just curious as to, do your parking ticket guys, what do they have an official title?
Traffic officers.
Do your traffic officers have a quota? Because I have always felt like they were coming for me.
Yeah.
I'm maybe on my 4th ticket now. It's probably my fault. It's my fault because I'm the type that parks in a meter. I put my quarters in and then it says taxi spot or something along that line. I just happen to miss it barely.
They're really efficient. So
are they just efficient, or are they on a quota?
There are no quotas. Let me just.
Wow. And what about daylight savings time?
Quotas. No quotas. I know that's a myth that's out there, and actually, it is. I think that during the really lean years, the rough years from a budget perspective, every single penny of revenue that the city collected was really essential, because one of the things people don't know is that the revenue that we collect from citations, it doesn't actually go directly back to transportation. It goes to fund things like police, fire, libraries, basic city services.
That makes me feel better about my tickets.
And so,
it's a good cause.
It is a little bit of a contribution that you're making to the city of Los Angeles.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk about this more after the break. We'll see you guys in just a few minutes.
watching Trojan Vision. For more of your favorite shows, check us out.
I hate commercials.
Me too.
I really like this color on you.
Really? I always try to get something a little bit darker.
You have to tell us about your new guy.
Oh, so honestly, I don't
How
know.
about we not right now?
Why?
Hello, Trojan Vision is back on.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Good evening and welcome back to CU at USC. I'm your Wednesday night host. Before the break, we talked a bit about parking and transportation because we are here with the general manager of the Los Angeles Department of Transportation, and we're going to ask her some more questions. So Ms. Reynolds is here to answer anything that you were curious about. So if you do have questions, please tweet in. So let's, we had just talked a bit about parking tickets, and I know you don't want to stay on that for too long
I'm
because
happy
that's
to answer all your questions.
that's the stuff that people complain about. And maybe we're clarifying things because if you weren't watching before the break, what we just learned is that your parking tickets are actually improving Los Angeles. So every time you're paying that $145 plus $25 for not having a front license plate, you're actually saving the community, which is so helpful to hear. It really is enlightening.
Good.
No, before the break, and actually before the show, we talked a bit about transportation and technology. And for those of you who do know and some of you who don't, this age of technology and cars who are automated essentially, is becoming so real. And it's no longer something that's in a Back to the Future kind of movie, but this is something that we're seeing here on the streets live. What is that like for you in a position where you're essentially forced to morph with technology or grow with this movement?
Yeah. Well, I think we see a few big trends happening in transportation. One is cars are also becoming increasingly more electric, right? So there's more and more electric cars that are out. And actually, there's a company called Maven that just launched an electric car sharing program in downtown Los Angeles. So if you want to go drive one of their super cool cars, you can just sign up and you can use it, just like a car sharing, regular car sharing program. The other sort of trend is something called shared use mobility, which is a very wonky term, but it's just shorthand for all of the new transportation choices that you see. Everything from Uber and Lyft to the new bike share bikes that are in downtown to something like car sharing, which is also coming to Los Angeles, I hope, in a much bigger way. And then the last trend is really increasing automation. And so cars that are connected so they can talk to each other, cars that are connected to the infrastructure so they can actually have two-way communications with traffic signals, for example, and ultimately cars that can operate without a human being using the steering wheel and a brake and a gas pedal. So there's some positive outcomes that could be possible, right? There's, if we want to get to a place where people don't die in traffic crashes anymore overnight, we could automate the entire fleet of cars because 94 or 5% of the crashes that happen are because of human error or choice, right? So if you remove the human, then you get a much safer outcome.
And this must be you campaigning. Oh, it flipped off. There we go. this you?
Oh, right. So that's Vision Zero. Yeah, that was such a good day. I'm wearing the same dress. How embarrassing. There's the mayor and the chair of the transportation committee, also on the Metro board, Councilmember Mike Bonin, who represents the West Side. Vision Zero is this plan to get to zero traffic deaths by 2025 because about 230 people die every year on city streets. Just trying to get around town, and about half of those are people biking and walking, and there are a lot of older adults and children in particular because it's just physics. We're not designed to withstand a crash with a 3-ton piece of steel, and you know the more frail you are or the less resilient your body is, the smaller you are, you know, the more likely those crashes are to result in death. And actually, just this year, driver fatalities are up about 50% because combination of things, but really speed is the main reason why a crash results in death, and how fast somebody goes on the road is the result of the design of that street. And so Vision Zero is about acknowledging, look, people make mistakes, but the result of those mistakes shouldn't be that you lose, you know, that you lose your husband, your mom, your daughter, you know, that so Vision Zero is definitely, you know, something that we think about a lot when we think about autonomous vehicles. If autonomous vehicles and kind of shared mobility, so this trend away from owning your own car and paying for trips, you know, using Uber and Lyft instead of actually buying a car, if those two things rise together, we could reduce the number of cars that are actually on the street, right? We could create a place where maybe we don't need to use so much asphalt for, you know, moving individual people in private vehicles. But the flip side of that is that when you drop this stuff into a traditional model, which is basically a transportation planner's crystal ball, they're called travel demand models. They sort of put a bunch of stuff in and then, you know, look 40 years into the future. I have mixed, you know, right. I'll just leave that there. But what you see is that they actually result in people driving more, because if you no longer have to be engaged in the act of driving, which in Los Angeles, let's face it, is not fun. You know, nobody likes driving in LA so much anymore. Then maybe you can wake up at 2 a.m, go get in your robot car, fall asleep. The robot sits in traffic for you for 4 hours. You get back, you get where you're going. You send your car home, right? Instead of having to pay to park it, your car drives itself back home. Now you've just doubled the amount of traffic, right? Because instead of one trip, now there's 2 trips. And then it does the same thing in the evening, and you don't care because you can watch TV and hang out. That's not actually a great outcome for a city, right? Where we're trying to combat congestion, we're trying to ease traffic, we're trying to be more sustainable, we're trying to create opportunities for people to interact with each other more. So that's why it was important for us to put together a transportation technology strategy, which we did, which you can go check out on urbanmobilityla.com. And it has short-term, medium-term, and long-term actions for the city to take. Because we need to get on it now. I mean, as you said, you know, these things are closer than they appear. They're not 20 years out in the future, they're 6 years out in the future. And so if we want to get ready, I mean, having a fully automated bus fleet would be amazing, but that's not going to happen overnight. You know, we have to start now if we want to get there.
No, I was actually thinking about this because I'm wondering, I see so many cities that are now realizing, oh, we have to do something about the technology change. We can't just sit back and let things happen. Was it like that before you came into office, or do you feel like when you came in there was this, all right, now we have to do something about it? Because I know big companies like Tesla have just started weaning up within the last 5 or so years.
You know, I would say this, that when I came to LA, I had in my mind that I really wanted LA to adopt Vision Zero, which we've talked a little bit about, because safety, in particular safety for people walking and children and older adults, that's what I've spent most of my career focused on and working on. And so something I care about a lot, and it's something that I wanted to bring to Los Angeles. A lot of cities in California and the US have adopted it, and so it's a great moment that we're rethinking what our priorities are on the street. You know, maybe it's more important for people to take it easy than it is to move as many cars as possible, as we
Yes.
can. The second thing I wanted to do was really to get the city to the table on this issue of autonomous vehicles, because it wasn't just Los Angeles that wasn't really engaged. There wasn't any city in the U.S. that
Of
was
course.
sort of paying attention. And even now, the Department of Motor Vehicles had a hearing on its rulemaking. Like, they're making the rules for how this is going to work in California.
Wow. Okay.
Los Angeles was the only city that showed up to testify at that hearing. It's
Wow.
amazing to me, but I just, I want to keep doing what I can to help people think this stuff through, because the stakes are so high.
Yes.
For cities. The most precious thing we have in cities is space. And people are going to continue coming to cities and moving to cities. And we want to use that space in really smart ways. We want to build parks, affordable housing, bikeways, not decked freeways, and, because we can't build our way out of the congestion that we have.
Yes. Now, I know that you mentioned that you had actually worked in San Francisco for some time, and I just thought of this because you had spoken briefly on the fact that, you want to create change and you want to make an impact. But I think that what's so phenomenal about you is that your change is also within your organization. So within, I know you guys call it LA Dot.
Yes.
I didn't know if I could actually say that.
LADOT, La Dot. That's right.
And I'm wondering what that is like for you, because your employees love you, and actually you because, and I say this because you worked in San Francisco, correct?
I
and you
did.
were managing
a smaller group.
I forget what the name of it is.
Livable Streets.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
But a family member of mine worked under the transportation division.
Oh, really?
Yes. It was my uncle, and he had spoken so highly
that's
about
so great.
everyone in leadership. And I'm thinking, okay, this makes sense now. What is that like for you now, being in San Francisco, being in Los Angeles, managing a large group, clearly, as we can note by all the tickets I've gotten, and being able to really create a community within your own company?
Yeah. So the thing about, and I approach public service with from a place of gratitude. I'm thankful for what I have. I'm thankful for the opportunities, and I love this city. And I think that the way that I can help make the city a better place in the role that I have as a manager and as a leader is really in making LADOT a great place to work. I'm never going to be successful at Vision Zero or at getting us ready for robo-taxis if I can't make LADOT a great place to work. And so I want to start my focus on the employees. And that includes making sure that we lift them up and give credit. And actually just this morning we had a breakfast for all of the people. We do an employee recognition program every month, and all the people who've been recognized over the last year, we, just as a small token of appreciation for everything that they do. I am the 8th general manager in the last 14 years.
Wow.
So there's been a lot of turnover at the top, and understandably, the people who show up every day to do this very difficult job that we have, whether it's out there directing traffic or writing tickets or trying to design a new bike lane or trying to figure out, a taxi driver permit.
They feel that.
They need that stability in leadership, and they need to know somebody has their back. So that's what I think my job is to go to bat for the people that I have and to move things out of their way, right?
And you certainly have done that.
Well, we'll see.
We're so thankful to have you. And of course, your company is thankful to have you as well, LA Dot.
LA Dot.
And if any of you are interested in following Seleta online, where can they
So
find you?
I have a Twitter handle at my name, Seleta Jewel, Jewel, and then LADOT Official has a Twitter handle as well, and then we also have LADOT Transit and LADOT Vision Zero. So we've got and the bike program. So we have a lot of, no matter what you're interested in, you can follow. You can follow it. You can find out what we're up to, and send us questions and send us comments and. Keep us honest. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday.
You're watching Trojan Vision. For more of your favorite shows, check us out at trojanvision.com and like us on Facebook.